to build his computers, he doesn't build them in Texas anymore. He didn't build them in the United States. Where does he build them? In Ireland. Because in Ireland, they tried to impose a property tax a few years ago. No one paid it. And so they just said, well, okay, we'll repeal it. So I love being Irish. So he builds his factories there, no property taxes. They've also, in the past few years in Ireland, have been slashing their business taxes. So it's much cheaper for him to build computers in Ireland, put them in boxes, and ship them to the United States. That's cheaper for him. That's crazy. That a guy born, raised, did all of his great innovation in Texas is now building his product in Ireland because we've taxed ourselves out of the marketplace. So while Ireland was slashing their business taxes, what did Texas Republicans do? We implemented a new business tax, a crazy, wild, burdensome, insane business tax for the purpose of cutting our property taxes. But yet it didn't cut anybody's property taxes. So it's kind of challenges that we have to address. Finally, I would suggest to you maybe one of the issues that I'm most bizarrely passionate about is the idea of transparency. That one of the most important things that we can be arguing for at the local level, our cities, our counties, our schools, is something that my group successfully pushed through the legislature 2 years ago, and that is a requirement that every expenditure in the state level is available online in real time. So right now, you can go to the comptroller's website, Susan Combs' website, and you can find how much the Amarillo field office of TxDOT is spending on telephone service. You can find out how much the governor's office spends on donuts. You can find out all sorts of just minute information about how your tax dollars are being spent by state agencies. Now, Susan Combs, who's, I think, one of our best statewide elected officials, she's about as tight-fisted as they come. And I'm surprised she doesn't make her husband reuse Kleenexes, But her office, when they implemented, this program that the legislature passed through the legislature, her office found that in just her office, they found $5 million in recurring annual savings based on people looking at the website and finding, phone service things, copier contracts, that kind of stuff. So they could get a better deal. None of it was malfeasance. None of it was somebody robbing the state blind. It was just the stupid, idiotic inefficiencies that you get in bureaucracies. And by having more people able to take a look at the books and see how the dollars are being spent, remarkably, they found $5 million in savings. That's now a little bit of an old number, and that's just in one office of the 120 some odd agencies that exist in the state of Texas. So transparency has that kind of effect. It also has the effect of reminding the people who's spending the money that we are paying attention, that we have the ability to see it. They hand us a bill for government every year in the form of our taxes. Your property tax, your sales tax, your business tax, whatever it may be. At a bare minimum, you and I, in our democracy, should be allowed to see the receipt. We should be allowed to examine how those dollars are being spent. And to push for that at the local level would do wonders for greater accountability in your city, in your county, and in your school. And the best part about it politically is argue against it. I defy you. Please, 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 Mr. School Board President, explain to me why the taxpayers shouldn't be allowed to see how the school district is spending the money day in and day out. Please, have that conversation with me. I love that fight. So far, we have not found anyone who's willing to have that argument. Now, they will do everything they can to oppose it, to stop it, to delay it, but they won't argue about it in public because they know they lose. Because whether any of us want to admit it, and in fact, you guys are at the epicenter of the freedom of information movement in the Western world, frankly. Texas has a very proud history that most of us have forgotten, and it's gotten buried in lots of laws and regulations. But because of Robstown and some of the various scandals there over the years, several decades back, Texas has the most aggressive open meetings and open records laws. Now, we have a culture and a history that says you've got a right to know. You don't have those same rights in Oklahoma, in New Mexico, in Florida, in California, New York, Washington, Vermont, New Hampshire, North Dakota, South Dakota. You don't have any of those rights anywhere else that we have in Texas in terms of open meetings and records. So, again, you and I will look at things here and go, oh my gosh, it's such a disaster, things are falling apart. And they are. But not as bad as they are in those other places. And that we at least have a history and a tradition upon which we can build for real lasting reforms. So I think those couple of things, property taxes, which is fairly local, your business tax, which only your legislature knows, and then transparency, which is something you can demand your school district do. It doesn't cost anything. They already have those records. It's just a question of letting you look at them while you're wearing your bunny rabbit slippers and your bathrobe at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's the only real difference. And they should be able to make that available to you. They should want to make it available to show you how ethically they're behaving. Now, what we do find, though, when you think about that question of property taxes, is the only real way those come down is if you and I start getting serious about what we're asking our public schools to do and what we're allowing our public schools to do. Right now, do y'all all know about the 10% rule? It says only the top 10% of high school graduates, or excuse me, the top 10% of high school graduates are automatically allowed into Texas 4-year public universities. Well, the effect of that over the past decade has been that really our public 4-year universities are filled only with the top 10% of Texas kids. Top 10% are who are in our 4-year universities in Texas. The 50% of incoming freshmen to our 4-year universities need remediation in math, science, history, and language arts. 50% of the top 10 aren't yet prepared for college when they get there. What are our schools doing to the bottom 90% of our kids? One, that's frustrating from the perspective of, as a taxpayer, what's happening to my money. It's even more terrifying to me as someone who hopes that our state is still around in 10, 20, 50 years. But the reason we have public education, the reason that Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Rush and Madison and Monroe and those guys all advocated that you have systems in which people have access to free education, to government being involved in education. Why did they advocate for that? Because they understood that for a free society, a society based on those democratic Republican principles, and to have an operating economy, you needed an educated workforce. You needed people who were educated. And for a long time, it kind of worked. But today we have school systems that are state-of-the-art for about 1895. We do everything today the exact same way that we did in 1895, with very few examples. The chalkboard is now a whiteboard. Ooh, high-tech, We still tell people they can only go to the school that's that's close to their home based on their zip code. If someone told my wife that she could only buy milk at the Randalls that's near our house, she would probably kill them. More than likely kill them. Why? Because she likes the Randalls that's a little further from our house. She just likes the layout of it, and I don't know why. But, for something like buying milk, we have complete choice about where we go and what we pay and what size the carton is and everything else. And yet, the most important thing that we do for our kids, prepare them for the future, prepare them to be leaders in our future, what do? We march them off in a single file line to the closest school the government tells them that they can go to. That's crazy. That's insane. That's not efficient. It's not very effective. We need to be